friends. Trisha Goyer here, and I'm here with my friend Nova McBee, which is a new friend, and we are having so much fun. I mean, we just like met and like, okay, you're gonna be one of my new best friends. So, so there. So welcome, Nova.
Thank you, Trisha. Yes, it's true. Trisha and I met, felt like we had been old friends. And so that's so fun. Now we get to chat online, which I don't always do with anyone, but I will for Trisha.
Well, thank you for being here. So Nova, let's just start by why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, my name is Nova McBee. I am the author of the Calculated series, which of course now everybody's like, you have to say you're an award-winning author, which has been
Mm-hmm.
great. This series has won several awards and has been nominated for even more. And it is currently being developed into a major motion picture.
Yay!
Also fun and amazing news. And you're just like, ah! I'm still pretty happy about that one. And I've lived abroad for 20 years. That's a huge part of who I am and
Mm,
love languages. I tell everybody they're like my chocolates. I would prefer to learn a new language than do anything else, and love culture, love traveling. I love raising my kids abroad and taking them into new countries. And I'll be an explorer for the rest of my life, that's for sure. And writing books and screenplays is just now I'm in love with story.
yes. And that's why we hit it off. I love travel. I love new places. I love experiencing things and learning things, writing and story and movies and books. I mean, I just love it. And, people talk about going on vacation and sitting on a beach. No, I want to explore. I want to figure out what was going on there. We
Yes.
go, we went on a cruise and we went to a, plantation in Jamaica so I could see how a plantation is run. I'm not going to lay on a beach. So I just love that you lived abroad and had your kids and raising kids to just understand the world, because I think that
Yeah.
is so huge. It's so important for them to get outside of our little corner of wherever we live. And my daughter, we went on our first trip overseas when she was in high school on a mission trip. But now she is living full time in the Czech Republic. And my two
Wow.
little grandbabies, who are 4 and 1, are bilingual. And it's so amazing just to see her life and living in Europe. And she talks to me as she's walking down the cobblestone. And although I don't like she's far away, but it is great to have our kids get this expansive view of the world.
Oh, for sure. I would say I don't think I would be able to have written the Calculated series without having
Mhm.
lived my own adventures first. And I encourage everyone to go and live abroad, travel abroad. It just changes your perspective so much, gives you so many riches that you can never buy those kinds of riches, those
Yeah.
adventures, the things you learn. It makes your life so rich. And it's painful too, because you make these really deep friends all over the world and you can't be with everyone you love at the same time.
Mhm.
And yet your heart just expands, when you just see different cultures and people and languages and how they think and how they love. And it's so rich. And my kids now are like, my son, he's 10. And at the beginning of this year, he wrote a list of 72 countries that he thinks that we should go to this year.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay, this is like, my husband is exactly like me, right? We've lived abroad for a long time, have these massive, like, this passion for the world, and so it's not a surprise that our kids are like this.
Yeah.
We're
Yes.
like, maybe we'll try one or two, but 72 is probably not gonna be able to work.
Yeah. You'd have to start going now. Like, you better get out there if you're going to do
Yeah,
72.
there's only 52 weeks in a year, so
Yeah.
we'd be like hopping all over the world pretty quick there. But
Yeah. Well, go through Europe and you can drive through lots of countries in a day.
yes,
So,
yes, no. And I lived in Europe. I lived in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. And so I lived actually a lot of places in Europe and got to travel extensively in
mm,
Europe. And that's amazing when you literally can go to a country in one day, and
yeah,
hop back and forth.
exactly. Yeah. So
And
fun.
those make great books. It just falls into
Mhm.
all things story as well.
I
So
love it. Yeah. So I am in the middle of Calculated. It's on audiobook. It is so good. So our
Yay!
mutual friend Kristen is like, you need to read these books. I'm like, yeah, Kristen. Yeah, Kristen. And she's like, no, you really need to read these books. Okay, Kristen, I have a lot going on. She's like, no, really, you need to read the books and then you need to meet Nova. Okay. I start reading the books. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm calling her. This is so good. And she's like, I know. And then later, like, I'll either text her, I'm like, I'm at this part or this is happening. And she's like, just listen to me. So I'm so glad that she was so persistent. And I'm so thankful for friends when they find great books and meet great people. They're like, hello, here you go. You're going to love this. And
Yeah.
so I'm just amazed that, and I've told multiple people this, which is great because authors love when you tell about their books. Just the storytelling world, it's not even a straight storyline. Like we are going forward and backward on this history of the storyline, which is hard to do, and you have done it so well. I've never confused with what's happening, which sometimes you can get confused, like, where are we at? What's going on? And then it just keeps making you more interested in, like, well, what happened? Or how did that happen? And how did she end up here? So, and I'm probably like, people are like, just tell us what the book's about. Before I start ranting, just keep ranting. So, why don't you tell us a little bit just about? We'll start with Calculated, and then we'll talk about your other books. So, I could just go on all day, but explain to our listeners just what Calculated is about, and then the series is about.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that's so much. I just want to dive into all the dual timelines and so yeah, essentially Calculated, and I have a little copy right here. This is
Yay! I just have it on audiobook, so
that big old 8/infinity. Very significant to the book. Yeah, so basically it follows a teen math prodigy that has kind of a borderline supernatural gift to the way she sees the world through these screens of math equations and predictions happening all around her, which is based on real math. The research was hard. My brain nearly exploded. But
I know
it was
all
worth
those
it.
little details, like this many steps between that, and I'm like, did she just make that number up, or would it really be that many steps from that spot to the pier or whatever?
I did extensive research on the math, and you don't need math to read the book, but
no,
it does get more and more beautiful as the series goes on because math just points to the most amazing truths in our world, and it will blow your mind and just rip your heart open, and it just gets more and more beautiful. And you were talking about messaging Kristen at like what parts of the book, that it gets significantly more heavy when you get to book 2 and book 3, because there's just so much more depth that gets, when you do a series, you can get deeper and deeper. And then there's more romantic tension going on in book 2 and book 3, which is also fun. And anyway, so it follows a teen math prodigy who is taken because of her gift and what it can do, taken by bad guys, very bad guys. And she must learn what her gift is truly for and how to truly use it and escape. And there's, all kinds of stuff, billionaires, smugglers, forbidden romance, the off limits boy, the mentor, the grumpy billionaire, the secrets, the mystery, and all the huge conflict that comes up, a crisis in the midst of it all that she has to navigate with her gift, and all the while learning to be who she's truly made to be.
Yeah. And it seems like so true to life. I mean, there's parts, I'm just trying to figure out how not to give too much away, but there's parts she's imprisoned and you're like, oh my word. Like I could picture this is what it would be like. And then there's parts where like she's captive, and I mean, and then parts when she's in very opulent settings, and it's very true to life. I mean, sometimes you're reading a book and it's like, well, this is a book, you can just tell. I don't know. It just seems like I'm following this very real person as we're going along, and I got to see what happens. So that's just amazing. So, you could get caught up in, there's like, the fictional world, or like, oh my goodness, this person is real, and I'm going to put her on my prayer list because I'm so concerned.
And honestly,
she seems very real. It's very real. Yeah.
That is what people keep saying about all of these characters. And they're like, they're so real. And part of it is also the settings that I've written in, because book 2 is Shanghai, Seattle, right? Born and raised in Seattle, also lived abroad for 20 years, lived in China for many years. And then book 2 is in the Middle East. I lived in the Middle East. Book 3 is in Europe. I lived in Europe, in Finland. And so part of that is like the setting. It's fun because people are like, I feel like I'm there. And I'm like, yeah, because I was there. And the smells that you're smelling are the ones I actually smelled, and the things they're eating I actually ate. And in China, you know, I had amazing experiences to be in some of the worst places, and also some of the top and the most beautiful. And so navigating those worlds was fun to do. Obviously, I was never imprisoned.
Do you have something you need to tell us? No.
Don't tell anybody it's based on me. No, I'm joking.
No, yeah.
Although people have wondered, I've been asked numerous times if I am a prodigy after writing these books, and that is a huge compliment. I'm like, but no, it actually, like I said, caused my brain to explode. I had to weep over massive research to get things right. And it's literally just, you know, creativity, imagination coupled with research and hard work, which is what writing is.
Yeah. It's so fun, and then it's so hard.
It's so amazing. It's life-giving. It's just like the best gift in the world to be a writer. But it's not easy either.
Yeah.
And it does take, you know, hey, authors weep over their books so that you can enjoy everything, and they work really hard.
Yeah. So I love that. So there's 3 books currently. Will there be more that we can expect?
Well, if you get to the end of book 3, if there weren't more, you'd hate me.
Okay.
And so, yes, there is a final book. It's so fun because, you know, it's calculated, simulated, activated. And then the last book, we had everybody kind of guess what that last title would be, because obviously there's a theme, there's an aided theme. And it's so fun because nobody could guess. I mean, they were like, terminated, you know, like, you know, accelerated, you know, like even somebody was like constipated, you know.
No, that would not be a good.
Like, you know, I mean, there were some jokes in there. It was hilarious, but like, I don't even know, dozens and dozens of guesses. But the final book in the series is called Liberated.
Ooh.
So fitting for what is to come. And I'm so excited. I'm doing all the final edits for it now. And it's one of those books that is like, you know, it's the final one, but it's also the most wrecking in your soul. So I hope everyone will really love it.
Oh, so good. Okay, so exciting. Like, lots to read while we're waiting for book 4. And then you talk about it's in production. Like, how did this happen? What is going on? I want all the details, because this does not happen every day.
This does not happen every day. And the way it happened to me was not normal either. And my agent, I have an amazing agent. She always is like, you always do things backwards. She's like, I don't know how life happens to you, but it happens to you in a different way than everyone else. Because I actually got my film deal first before I ever got a publishing deal. So I really did go in reverse. It was like film deal, audio deal, then publishing deal. And
yeah, I've never heard this before.
Yeah. And so, you know, this is what I feel like. When you're doing what you're meant to be doing, you end up at the right place at the right time. And that is just how it happened to me. And I was in China, right? I had already finished Calculated. I'd finished another book. I was querying. I was, you know, looking for that right agent, you know, and all that stuff. And I met another woman in China who was the daughter of producers, and she was also starting to produce her own stuff. And she heard about Calculated, and she said, do you mind if I read this? And she's like, it sounds interesting. And it's like, of course. And so she reads it, and she says, oh my word, I think I know producers who are looking for something exactly like this. Do you mind if I pass it on? And I mean, what do you have to lose? After you have nothing to lose when you're querying and you've already been rejected like 100 times. You know, it's like, you have nothing to lose. And so you're like, sure, go ahead, pass it on. And you know, I didn't hear anything. And then I get an agent actually on a different series. I had stopped querying Calculated. And I get an agent on a different series. And then right after I signed my agent, this producer says, we need to get in touch with your agent. We want to option this.
Wow.
And my agent was like, what? What book is this?
That's
I thought
so funny.
we signed on a different book. And I'm like, yeah. So there's that.
There's this other one that I
there's this-
have. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it was such a fun ride. She ended up reading Calculated in a day. And she's like, well, no wonder.
Yeah.
And then everything went in reverse. We're doing a movie deal, and then we're, the book's on sub. People are like, she's like, which one do we do? But Calculated was such a big story, and it had such a wide audience. We kind of were like, what is this? Because it's one of those books that really transcends genres, and it passes all audiences. And so Calculated has been just that phenomenon for me. It's like we're 12-year-olds and 80-year-olds and everyone in between. I mean, I have a huge group of middle-aged men who are obsessed with my book. And then it's like,
I was just thinking my husband's going to love it when I'm done with it. But yeah.
The dads love it. And moms and daughters read it together. Teen boys are reading it together. And it's just like one of those things. And everyone was like, this is a bigger story. And then the producers were like, what's after this? Because Joe Rivers, she's somebody that people are going to want to follow. And so it was actually their inspiration to have me keep writing, because I was so afraid to keep writing this series because it seems so difficult for me. But once it was established, they were like, we want all 4. And they optioned all 4. The first one's in development to be a film. And, we have the same screenwriter as the Chronicles of Narnia, the very first one. Very cool. She's globally known for book to film adaptation. We have an amazing production team. Everything's in motion for the first one, but they're simultaneously developing the second, third, and fourth ones as well.
That's awesome.
I know. Yeah. And they want to do them all back to back. So they're doing a ton of, the back end stuff now, so that they can film back to back. So it's exciting. We'll see where it goes. Hollywood is a fickle thing, but
that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So how long have you been writing? Because it just sounds like, I just had this idea, and then I got a movie deal, and then I got all the book contracts. So it's just like, been writing for 2 years, and I don't know, all this happened. So how long have you been writing?
Right. A long time. Right. It is not. And so for all of you writers out there, it does take a lot of work behind the scenes. And, I was living in China at the time when I felt like actually God was like, I want you to write books. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. It was funny because in LA, we were just in LA Comic-Con with the producers. The producers were kind of just promoting the series and the films in LA Comic-Con. It was so hilarious. Somebody was like, why'd you start writing books? I'm like, because God told me to. And he's like, and now you have a movie deal? Somebody shouts out, pays to listen to God. I'm like, yeah.
I love
awesome.
that.
It was awesome because, those are the things that sometimes we feel we're supposed to do, and you really have to step out and just do them. And so I actually, when I felt like that happened, I just started researching, how to write better books. And I took 7 years just practicing story and reading everything that I could devour. I didn't go to school for it, but I was published in university. I actually went to school for international relations, politics, languages, and that kind of stuff. So I obviously knew how to write, but also like a part of school is actually learning how to do something yourself. Yeah. So if you can just learn how to learn, you can learn anything without a degree. And so I just dove into how to write books, how to research, and what is the publishing agents, everything, like story craft. I devoured everything that I could for years and years and years and years, not ever trying to be published. And then finally I got this idea for Calculated. I started writing it down, and that's when everything sort of opened up, because I started showing professionals, and they're like, you are ready. You need to, you need to move on this. And it was so unanimous wherever I showed Calculated that I was like, okay, maybe I'm ready to like step in. And now here it is. So I did actually take about 3 years to write Calculated. I wrote it in 2.5 years, revised it for like another year. But I was also getting married and having kids and
Yeah.
babies and like sleepless nights where I'm like, had no sleep, but all of a sudden I still had this huge drive to write books, which
Yeah.
is amazing because there's no explanation except for you're meant to do this, you know?
Yeah. And I just feel like God puts it on our hearts. Like my first conference, I was 22 and pregnant with my third baby when I went to my first writers conference. I was
Yes.
young. I just had my high school diploma. I'm supposed to write books. I just knew like in me that that's what I was supposed to do.
Yep.
And it makes no sense logically. Like I don't have a degree from anywhere, but I have been to conferences and I've read books and I've studied and I've gotten lots of rejections. I mean, it's just like when God has a plan.
Yeah.
And I think so many people feel like, okay, after the kids are grown or after this, but I mean, God calls us to something and it has benefited my kids. Now, that baby that I was pregnant with is 28, his sister is 30 and his brother is 33, like, and they've seen me, they've been there in the process as I've worked on stuff, they've seen rejected, they've gone to conferences, and I really feel like if God is calling us to something, it's for our children too. Like your
Yeah.
kids have been overseas, they've seen you write, they're going to be part of this, and it's like we can say, look what God is doing, not
Yeah.
like what mom is doing. Mom's really tired right now and mom's overwhelmed, but look what God is doing. I think that is so important. So I would love just to hear more about, your faith journey in this, because um your audience is a very wide audience, but also your faith is a very strong faith where you feel like God, is leading you into kind of the unknown. It's, and he's fulfilling all these crazy dreams because it's God. So I would just love to hear about your faith journey.
Yeah. Well, specifically with writing, it requires a lot of faith. I mean, even if you're not a believer, it takes faith to write a book.
Yeah.
But as a believer, when you know you're called to do something, it really it's like fuel that no one else can have. You wake up every day believing it has purpose, and I mean, I guess you have to rely on it so much because through those rejections, like you said, your kids were seeing you being rejected. Well, it's like, yeah, they're rejecting me, but actually I know I'm supposed to be here. So I'm not backing down. I'm not going to back down. Like I have a place here and I can believe it. I can trust it. And just moving into that. And, I've known God since I was very little and had such amazing experiences. And he has led me to do the most crazy adventures in my life. So, and by now, I trust what he says and I'm willing to risk great things to do it. And that's actually what I want my kids to see. Like you said, it's like, I don't care if they see me writing books. I want them to see that I'm obeying and I'm actually doing what he's asked me to do, which is in turn turns out to be the most amazing thing for yourself. Cause you're like, I love this. I'm so fulfilled. I'm like, love life. It's doing all this stuff. It's like bubbling over. It's like such a testimony. It's like, no matter what he asks, I'm going to do it. Cause I know it's going to be good. Yeah. And that's really what I want my kids to see. Cause right now they look at writing and they're like, it is so boring. All you're doing is sitting there. And I'm like, no, it is not boring at all. But the fact is they know everything that I do is inspired by, what he wants for me. And it's such a good life. It's such a good life. And if they take away that, they're going to have the most incredible adventures and they're going to see that it's possible because, hey, he said that's my mom and look what happened. And my mom said yes. My mom said yes. My mom said yes. And so it's truly all those yeses to him become huge yeses back to us in ways that we can't possibly imagine. Like countless stories, even writing books is like, even, the fact that God cares about the plot in our books, like, and he steps in to help you. Just what an amazing God. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because he created story. He knows story.
Oh,
he's in the middle of writing an amazing story.
Oh, yeah.
And so he knows plot.
Oh, no, he knows plot and he knows what we need. And like I was saying, those small yeses become big yeses because in the midst of writing Calculated, I was so determined to find the right mathematical concepts for Josephine so that her math would actually be
Mm.
legitimate. And I'm not a math person. Like, yes, I did great in math when I had to do math, and when I was done, I never did math again. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't remember any math. I have since then become a mini mathematician. After
Yeah.
4 books,
Oh, I
I
bet
am
you have to. She's a like genius math person, so you
oh,
have to know what you're talking about.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I'll admit it. Like I love all the math concepts. I don't like the actual doing the math, but anyway, developing Josephine Rivers, I couldn't get the math right. I was so frustrated. And I was, writers borderline are obsessed with finishing their stories, and I
Mhm.
was just obsessed. And I was living in China, and I just was like, I need to go home and write. I wanted to use all these spare moments to write. And I had 2 kids at this point, and I just remember being at this Sunday fellowship gathering, and there was a new person in town, and I wanted to like zip out as soon as it was finished, and I just wanted to write my story, and that's was the only thing that was on my mind. I had a plan in my head, and I wanted to zip out, and this one new person came, and she wanted to talk to me, and I'm like, I'm gonna tell her I don't have time. I have
Yeah.
something to do, and instantly just that voice of God that is so, he goes, nope, that's not who we are. We make time for people.
Mhm.
And I was like, you're right. You're
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
And that's like my priority. It's like you seek him and his kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be given, right? I didn't think that in the moment. I just said yes.
Yeah.
Sat down, and even though all my desire was to go home, I took off my backpack, sat down, and welcomed this person. Turns out she's a mathematician.
God knew. Yeah, I
And
love it.
because I said yes to him,
Mhm.
all the answers that I need were answered that day. Because I said yes to just
Yeah.
being what he's asked us to be, loving, welcoming, giving time to people. It was so, and I can't tell you how many countless times that has happened.
Mhm.
She answered all my questions. She solved the whole problem. The way Josephine is because I sat down and said yes, not knowing that she would give me anything. It's like I
I
didn't
love
think
that.
that has been my story over and over and over again. It's like every time I say yes, without any kind of, I'm not looking for anything
Yeah.
else. It's
Yeah.
just a simple yes. It becomes this huge yes back to us, and that is the partnership, and it shows. It's like so many birds with one stone, because you're like, not only does he care about her and me and how we act, but he also cares about Josephine Rivers and her math gift. It's like, it's just an amazing combination that just, blows my mind over and over and over again.
That is so good. And I think I have a story to share too, because it goes along exactly with this. And I love, you just have to say yes. And you have to be like, first of all, we have to know God to listen to his voice. But then it's about caring for people and loving people. And it's not about the
Yeah.
book. Like,
Yeah.
we could just be like, I just have to get the book done and I'm so overwhelmed. And yeah, you need something, but I can't deal with you right now. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
I have a story that almost, it goes along so well. So I was working on my Spanish Civil War series. So that was like books like maybe 7 and 8 and 9 that I've worked on. And a key part of this whole series is because in the Spanish Civil War, many people don't know that Germany was helping Franco bomb Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably know this because you love history and know all the things. So German pilots, even before World War II, were bombing Spain. This is
Mm-hmm.
1937, 38.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only 100 pilots during this time with planes that were flying. I needed to have one of my characters in one of these planes that are extremely rare. And I need to have a scene where he's controlling stuff and he's going to fake a crash landing. And sorry if I gave part of the plot away, but that's like this is like a key thing to all the 3 books, this plane thing. Well, this there's so little known about these planes, so little known about these pilots. They weren't supposed to be doing it. Germany was not supposed to be having uh, being at war and bombing anyone. So they were so just trying to find information was horrible. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm like, God, you know
Mm-hmm.
what was happening in Spain in the 1930s. Like you were there. And during this time, I ended up getting an email from this guy, Norm Goyer, and he's like, Oh, yeah, this is back in, we're talking like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't have all this internet searches. And he got my email and wanted to know if we were related. Well, that's my married name. And I don't have time. Like, I have book deadlines. I need to figure out this plane thing. And I do not have time for this person emailing me. So finally, I'm like, well, again, God, you need to help him. I'm like, okay. So I wrote down, like, okay, who's your family? Where are you from? I'll talk to my father-in-law. Then I call my father-in-law, and we could not find any way, like, they were related. They have the same last
Mm-hmm.
name, Goyer. We couldn't find any common thing. So I'm like, okay. Then I realized, like, oh, he was in his 80s in the time. So I
Mm-hmm.
love World War II veterans. I'm like, Norm, like, what was happening during World War II? Like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
And he said that he was trained to be a pilot, but he never flew because the war ended before he actually went overseas. So he was on the younger end and he got trained. He said, but then he went on and was an editor of a flight magazine for 30 years. And so he's flown all these planes all around the world. I'm like, Norm. So there were these
Wow.
Germans that were flying these planes. And he goes, oh, yeah, there's only 3 surviving planes from that time. I have flown one of them. And I'm like,
Wow.
Norm, will you help me write this scene? And he did. He was like, he would push this button, he would pull this lever that's good. Then, and Norm helped me write the scene that
Oh
I
my
needed. So
gosh.
it's completely accurate in the book. And, it's fiction. You could kind of, you can make it up.
Yeah.
Probably like 99.9% of the people will not have any idea that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know about the plane, that I just made everything up. But God was kind enough to bring this email from this guy trying to see if we're related, and we
Mm-hmm.
weren't, but he had flown one of the planes that I need to fly
I
in my
love
in
that.
my book. And it was like, yes, thank you, God. That was so helpful. And
Yeah.
so people like, how can you do it all? And like looking at you like, how can you do it all? It's like we're not. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, wish we were that great, but God is. And so I just love that, in the middle of this writing journey, it's just this growing relationship that we have with God. And it's real and active and alive and exciting. Like,
It
okay, God,
is.
what are you going to do today? Because you've been blowing me away lately and it's exhausting also. There's times I'm overwhelmed, like all these things, but God keeps showing up. So then you just keep going and keep doing all the good work.
Yeah. It's so awesome. And he loves stories, like you said. So I think I don't know, there's so many story makers out there. And I think God loves
Yeah.
storytellers
Yes. Yeah. So,
of all kinds,
of all kinds.
of
Yeah.
all ages, of all genres. Because I write mainstream fiction, and yet I look across the board and you see beautiful stories in everywhere,
Hmm.
everywhere.
Hmm. Yeah, because God knows the plot. I mean, all the hero's journey was his idea. It's just
Yeah,
saying.
I
Yeah.
know, right? You learn so much about the hero's journey, and also just some serious, like, I mean, the Bible itself has like the most beautiful metaphors, the highest stakes, like the hero's journey galore in so many stories. It's awesome.
Yeah. I just wrote a book, Esther. It releases. I don't know when it releases. The fall, maybe the spring. I don't know. But I went and plotted the book of Esther. I'm sitting there and I have my plot sheet, inciting incident and rising conflict and turning point, like all the plot sheets. And the book of Esther slides into those spots like it was the hero. It was like every spot was filled. There's nothing to fill in. I just have to write the book. And but I was amazed. It just fit perfectly. I'm like, oh, somebody knew what they were doing when they wrote the book of Esther. But it's just so amazing how the more you know about story and then the more you know about God, it's like, it's just awesome. I'm doing the daily Bible podcast now. It's a daily podcast where we're reading through the Bible chronologically and talking about it. And, like in our recording, we just finished Leviticus. And I'm like, before I'm like, oh, Leviticus is so boring. And then now, because we're having to find personal application daily,
Mhm.
it's like all these numbers and all like we're leading into numbers, but these intricate little things are all part of God's greater story. And so it's so cool that the more we just go on this journey with God, he just reveals so much, but we have to be willing to like step out in faith. So, you know, of course, go by the book, go get calculated and go get once you get started on that, you're just going to want to read everything she's done. So, but if God is calling you to do something, I really feel like, yes, go by the book for sure. Watch for the movies, yes. But maybe the message even today is also, what is God calling you to do? Are you supposed to be sitting down and writing? Are you supposed to go back to school and get that teaching degree? Are you supposed to sit down at your piano and start composing? Like, what is God calling you to do? And so, Noah, what encouragement would you have for maybe there's someone out there that is feeling like, I don't know, it just sounds like they're so talented and God's doing so much with them. But what would you say? Because I know God has a plan for each of us.
Yeah. And the thing is it never stops. Actually, I've done a lot of things in my life. And, I was, almost 30 when he started asking me to write novels. Do you know what I mean? And so
I can't believe that because you kind of look like you're 30 right now.
Oh, well,
so.
thank you. I'm over 40.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
But yeah, so like I said, I have lived it feels like I've lived so many lives because I've been able to do so many incredible things that I've said yes to. And I felt them, but I will say almost every single one requires faith. And like I said, even I'm all over the world. I've talked to lots of people of different faiths and backgrounds and people who don't believe at all. And even those people understand that there's stuff that takes, they have to step out into the unknown, and you have to be willing to do what it takes. And so I really encourage people to literally walk by faith and not by sight when they feel like when God is asking them to do something. You got to take that step and move into it, because it is fulfilling, even though it can be very scary. Like even moving abroad when I was a teenager, I felt like God told me to move abroad when I was a teenager. Now, first of all, I mean, think about that. It's like God was saying move abroad to a teenage girl to move abroad. Like
that's my daughter. Like, she would just turn 20 when she moved to Europe.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, God's sending me and he's going to provide every penny.
Yeah.
He provided every penny, and she went. We had friends there, but she went by herself and moved abroad. So like, you had got to meet my daughter. But it's So yeah, God speaks these things, and it's like, logically, this should not make sense.
And it doesn't, because he sees who we are and what we're meant to do. He knows what we're capable of. He sees us differently than we see ourselves. And if he's asking you to do it, he knows you can do it. He knows you can do it. He trusts you can do it. He wants you to do it. He knows you're going to enjoy doing it, and you get to see him in the midst of it, which is one of the greatest treasures of this earth, is getting to see God involved in your life and why he created you, and the purposes and the fruit that come from following him. And it is truly the most amazing life you can have. So it's like, don't delay. Don't delay.
And it's those daily steps of obedience too.
Yeah.
Because you talked about, it took 3 years to write Calculated.
Yes.
So that's a lot of daily sitting down. And I'm sure there's days you miss, but that's a lot of your bottom in the chair.
That is a lot of work. Yeah, you have to do the work. And I have met a lot of people who, there have been people who are like, oh, I know, God asked me to write this book, but it's like, yeah, but you still have to study craft, and you still have to learn how to write. And for me, something with publishing, I was super, I guess, driven to have a really high standard, because I was like, I want my book to go far and wide, but it's not unless it can reach the standard. So it takes work, but the faith keeps you going.
Yeah.
And that will be like what you said, for people who want to move abroad maybe, or who want a different job, or want to go back to school, or want to become a mom. And there are years of waiting. Believe me, there are years of waiting. I waited, and I waited faithfully. And that, I mean, it's not easy, but you wait and you believe.
So are there any new steps out there that you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this? Because I
Oh,
think there's
every day.
always something.
Every day. I think this life of faith only, he just wants to keep increasing it. He never wants us to plateau when it comes to faith. And, you know, my husband and I, we are thinking about adopting. And that is,
We could have some
that is a
conversations
huge,
about that.
that's a huge thing. Okay. That's a whole nother scary ride that is going
Mhm.
to take a lot of faith. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's always like God is, yeah, and it's just not one thing. It's like, yes, do this, and yes, do this, and yes, you're gonna write, and then yes, oh, there's this movie thing going on, and yes, oh, look at the needs of the children. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, okay, God,
Oh,
but
it's every day. It's
mhm,
daily. It's daily stretching our faith. But that's why we need each other too.
yeah,
We need a good community with people who are willing to do life together and
absolutely.
encourage each other in those hard moments. And I have one of the best communities ever. They just rally for each other's
Mm.
dreams. They rally for each other's families. They just, it's a fun adventure to be with people like-minded who are running this race together. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and I think it really impacts how you run your race. If there's someone like, "Oh, I can't do it. There's too many challenges. It's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
work."
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna help you run your race well, but when you
Uh,
have other ones like, "Oh, yeah, look at what God did," or "He's doing this," or
yeah.
"God showed up in this," that just encourages our race, and so it really impacts us, the people
Mm-hmm.
we surround. So if you can find a good community with whatever you want to do. I started going to my first writers conference because a friend in the church nursery said, I want to write a book. And when she said that, I'm like, me too. And we knew nothing. And she's multi-published now. She has a big corporate writing job for a
Wow.
Fortune 500, probably Fortune 50. I mean, one of the top companies. She's a writer there and also write. It's like God saw these little 20-year-old girls in this church
Yeah.
nursery who wanted to write, but I never would have ever gone to my first writers conference without her. And, with encouragement and then friends that I've met there, that we prayed together, that we spent time together. Um, yeah, so surround yourself with an awesome community and it
Yeah.
makes all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So many things. We could keep talking forever, but for those who want to connect with you and your books, where can they go to get more information?
Yeah, you can find me on my website. It's just novamcbee.com, and there's a contact form that you can email me at if you have any questions. Obviously, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I do have a Twitter account, not really on there.
I
And
know I don't really get on there either.
look,
Yeah.
I haven't been on there in years. And all the other social media, I'm just so out of date. So I don't know. I'm not on Hive or anything like that. But
I don't even know. Yeah.
Instagram is where I'm most active. Um, I just love being part of the greater writing community too, and
Mhm.
have done a lot in different spheres and just being involved with different writers. So I'm out there. If you Google me, you can find me, and feel free to reach out. And I would love if you read the series and
I
watched the
highly
movies.
recommend the audiobooks too. Highly recommend. Audiobooks are excellent. And is there any like date we can look forward to for the movies? I mean, I know these things are always so
Um,
hard.
So their projection of when it will actually come out, they do have like a soft kind of
Mhm.
launching date. It's not set in stone, but it's May 2025.
Okay.
So the filming actually, they're supposed to go into filming in 2024 because,
That's
like I
cool.
said, they're doing a ton of back
Well,
end.
it is just a lot of work. Like we have no idea. Like no
It's
idea
so
how
much
much goes
work.
into it.
It is, and that's been really fun. And this is a major production. I know there's lots of productions that are smaller. This one's
Mhm.
really major. They have like all A-list screenwriters and directors and all the Hollywood things that are just, you know, really, I mean, it's a big budget film, it's a big budget franchise. So that takes a lot of back end
Mhm.
work and so many steps that it's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so We'll
So
see what happens. I mean,
yay!
we have like really optimistic people in the film world. We're like, yes, it's going to be humongous. It's going to be awesome. And then there's others who are like, and it may never get made at all.
We're not going to believe those people.
They're just speaking from their experiences in
Yeah.
Hollywood, and people have been greatly disappointed by Hollywood. So, bringing things all the way up to the top and then having it fall apart. And yeah, Trisha, you've had films come all the way to almost greenlit and then fall apart, and so we just don't want that anymore.
Yeah. And God has a perfect plan, and it's like this is everything. Everything in my life is hold loosely, open-handed.
Yeah.
God, it's yours. If it happens, cool. That would be
Yeah.
fun. If it doesn't happen, that was kind of fun anyway.
Yes.
So
And enjoying every step. Like, I'm enjoying every step. And why not? Right?
Yeah.
It's better than sitting here going, oh, it might not be made. I'm just like, I'm gonna enjoy it for as long as it lasts. And actually my producers are amazing. Like I said, they keep me involved and informed. They ask my opinion on everything. They're just amazing people. I love working with them. I couldn't imagine doing this with anyone else, to be honest. They keep me so involved. It's awesome.
That's the fun part. I mean, mine actually, it was very close to getting it done, but just the process was like, what do you think of these actors? And what do you think of this? And I'm like, this is kind of fun. Like, it was a blast. Who knows if everything, will happen, but whatever. But it's just like these joys that God gives us. Even the process is fun, and the people we get to meet and connect with. It's such a God thing.
It is. And like meeting you too. So
yeah, I love it. Yeah. Well, Nova, thank you for being here. You are a huge blessing. I cannot wait to finish this book and the next one and the next one and the next one. So.
Yes. You might be messaging me after book 2.
Oh, I probably will.
After book 2 and book 3, there were just like, those angsty messages. It was so fun. As an author,
I've thrown books across the room before. I have not yet thrown my phone across the room because it's my phone. But yeah. Then you're really impacting people though when they're that emotionally connected to what's happening in your stories.
I love it. I love writing emotional books. So, but thank you for reading, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
I love it. Thank you so much.